Hello there. I'm Dr. John Rex, and I'm here to answer your burning questions about AMR. The NHS England antibiotic procurement pilot is this incredibly exciting project. This is a world leading, first time ever action by a major government to create a different way of buying antibiotics. It's sometimes called the Netflix model. And the key idea is that NHS England wants to identify in its pilot version two really interesting new antibiotics, things that will do something special for the medical care of patients in England. Antibiotics, you probably wouldn't use them very often. That's also part of the recognition. These are going to be antibiotics for really bad bugs. And like everybody, the NHS England is trying to keep the rates of bad infections down. But when they occur, you need the new antibiotic. So the idea is that NHS England would buy, over a 10-year period, a supply of antibiotic from the innovator and buy it, whether or not the infections occur at any particular frequency. So it's buying it and saying, we would like this fire extinguisher and we're going to put it in our pharmacy. We're going to have it when we need it right away, no delays. The background on this is that NHS England several years ago started thinking about the idea of buying an antibiotic like a fire extinguisher, but also the question of how much should you pay? The value of a new antibiotic is a function of a lot of things. What can it do for you? For example, if you have a resistant infection, you don't have a new antibiotic, you might have to close an ICU. You might tell people they can't have surgery for a period of time. On the other hand, if you've got resistant infection, but you've got the tool, you treat the infection, it's gone. You don't transmit it anymore. And working with an organization called NICE, which is a health technology assessment group in the UK. It's actually the world's premier health technology assessment group, a group that thinks about what is the value of a new therapy? What's the value of a new drug? They sat down a few years ago and thought carefully about what's the value of a new antibiotic that does X or Y or Z. And they realized that the core rules for evaluating new drugs were okay, but they were inadequate, and there was needed to add some stuff on to the core rules. I mentioned a second ago, the ability to treat an infection in person 1 means that persons 2, 3, 4, and 5 don't get the infection. And that can have a huge knock-on value. So start thinking about what's the value to society of having the right kind of new fire extinguisher available. The number that they came up with for England, which is most of the UK, is £10 million a year is the upper end value that they would pay for a brand new fire extinguisher. So let's think for a second about that number, £10 million. £10 million a year from the UK. Well, the UK, if you look at it as a proportion of the global economy, let's think about it as a proportion of the G20, the 20 leading countries. So the UK is about 3% of the G20, so 1/33 of the bigger economies. So if I take our £10 million and we scale it up times 33, we've got £330 million. And now let's actually, the pilot talks about doing that for 10 years. So £330 million becomes £3.3 billion over 10 years. Turn that into dollars. It's about $4 billion over 10 years. So the UK is saying for the right antibiotic, we would pay our share of $4 billion over 10 years, our share of $400 million a year times 10 years to make this fabulous new fire extinguisher available in the pharmacy, no matter how often we need it. And if we only need it a few times, great. We've done a good job with infection control. On the other hand, if we need it, 10 times, 100 times, it's there. And we stop the infection right then. We don't have any more spread. We know that we need this tool. It's really interesting to think about that number, $4 billion, because others have looked at the question of what's a new fire extinguisher worth? And the estimates are in the range of $2 to $4 billion is the amount you need to pay for a brand new, high-end, super duper antibiotic fire extinguisher of medicine. So it's just marvelous to see a major government taking this seriously, taking the time to do the deep dive to figure out what that new fire extinguisher is worth, and then acting on that. And if you want to learn more about the really cool NHS England antibiotic procurement pilot, click the link below in the description box for a newsletter that will give you a lot more details. Thanks for watching.